Good morning. So far, a lot of people talk about different organisms, viruses, for instance, and a lot of viruses in the real world cause diseases, but most of the viruses mainly cause things like an epidemic, for instance. For example, viruses include MERS, Ebola, influenza, and so on. And apparently, those viruses they spread among people, and they are communicable diseases. However, we're not to the point that they cause a pandemic. And a lot of viruses, they are communicable diseases, means communicable diseases means they spread among people. Non-communicable diseases means they don't spread among people. Non-communicable disease may include heart disease, cardiovascular disease, diabetes. They don't spread among people, but however, influenza, MERS, and Ebola spread among people, so they are communicable diseases. And however, they are fictional viruses and diseases which include the simian flu, and it was a pandemic, and it was the deadliest in the in the movie Planet of the Apes. But however, its fiction does not exist in the real world. However, the simian flu was somewhat more fatal than the bubonic plague, which happened in the 13th or the 14th century. Anyway, I want to talk about some other virus that is fiction that nobody talks about. That is the SEX virus, the sex virus. So that sort of virus, which I came across in a game known as the Genesis Order, that virus seems to spread among people, and in general, viruses in the real world, they cause erectile dysfunction, whereas this virus, known as the sex virus, it causes symptoms like it causes people to be paralyzed, and as a result, it showed that a person ends up having reactions like orgasms to the point that they're paralyzed, that they can't move. That type of fictional virus. which of course has no connection with what's happening in the real world. When I came across the clip, I was astonished about how that virus could affect people, but not exactly surprised, since so the clip which showed the fictional virus affecting people is the clip.
Good evening. I'm Kimberly Foxx, and coming up on Channel 4 tonight, arrests now exceed 300 as more members of the criminal organization Eclipse Guild have been apprehended at Sanibel International. Authorities indicate many more arrests could be made in the near future as the investigation unfolds. In other news, more details from health experts reveal shocking side effects of what's being referred to as the sex virus. We'll discuss 7 signs that you might already be infected.
Okay, so I'm not going to talk about the Eclipse guide. I'm here to talk about the fictional virus, what is referred to as the sex virus. So in the clip, Kimberly Foxx said something about the sex virus and that it's transmissible, and she discussed things that various people could be infected and all that. However, in the real world, where does like the viruses involve MERS, Ebola, various so on, so that's not in the category. So the symptoms, like I said, it causes people to fall back, become slightly paralyzed for a few moments until they come back again. There is no vaccine for this fictional thing, and I have the clip which shows what could happen to a person. However, you might want to skip this because this might be a little disturbing for some viewers. So, in those clips, it shows that those two people, Lillian and Erica, who had the sex virus, when one of them was walking, one of them fell to the floor, and so did Erica. That's what happened. It caused they were temporarily paralyzed to the point that it causes things like increased urination and it causes excess fluid loss to the point like it could fill a glass like up to here. Well, thank you. Unfortunately, I couldn't show the rest because YouTube terms of services. Anyway, that was fictional. There's no connections what's happening in the real world. So viruses are in general the smallest of the organisms. So apparently they cause diseases like the common cold, influenza, and they're much smaller than bacteria. They're made up of genetic material such as DNA and RNA surrounded by a coat called capsid made of protein. And they hatch onto host cells getting inside of them and they reproduce. And other examples, apart from influenza, Ebola, they include polio and measles. Polio is a viral infection which can cause paralysis. It has been eliminated. So, but it exists in other countries. Measles, it causes 1 in 15 cases. It's a viral disease and it spreads very easily, and so on. Causes coughs and sneezes. But most importantly, viruses that have caused things such pandemics to occur, such as the Spanish flu, involve influenza, and the pandemic that is happening is the coronavirus known as COVID-19. Flu and COVID-19 have similar symptoms. It causes cough, sore throat, stuffy nose, muscle pains, and fever, so on. However, coronavirus causes change or loss in smell, which is most common with COVID-19, which is the difference. So, what can people do to limit these epidemics, and how do they control how various diseases are controlled so that it does not spread that much in a large community, for instance, where it involves social distancing, avoiding crowds, and staying away from infected people as possible. Loss of water. On top of that, people who are in health experts involved healthcare professionals, doctors, nurses, and scientists in viruses. So apparently influenza, COVID-19 are the epidemics and the pandemic which is happening in the real world. So when in the clip previously, when Kimberly Foxx referred to health experts, however, the real world, although health experts involve scientists, doctors, most people refer to people like Dr. Anthony Fauci and Bill Gates as health experts. Bill Gates does not have a degree in science or anything like that. So Bill Gates is not a health expert, although during the pandemic he he did various interviews on epidemics, endemics, and he was in an interview he talked about how these various diseases can be continued and what can be done to prevent the next epidemic. When asked for comments, Bill Gates had this to say.
Dr. Fauci featured in conspiracy theories, like one says that Dr. Fauci's trying to make money off of these vaccines and various negative things about me. There you're encouraging people not to trust the advice on masks or taking the vaccine, and that could be damaging. It's a new phenomena. I don't know, will it hurt the vaccine uptake where everyone who takes the vaccine is not just protecting themselves, but reducing their transmission to other people and allowing society to get back to normal? So it's a completely unexpected phenomena.
So apparently Dr. Fauci mentioned about epidemics such as using vaccines to reduce transmission, but apparently to reduce transmission of viruses would be to quarantine and isolate a person, ensure that they are not in contact with anybody, such as ensuring that they're in another room so that they don't infect other people. It's not about just using just vaccines, because vaccines, it may seem like they reduce transmission of viruses. They reduce transmission of viruses, but mainly the viruses, they reduce severity of a virus, like it reduces deaths, hospitalizations, so on. So to ensure that happens, if let's say a group of people were infected and they were quarantined for days, and if that happens, it can reduce an outbreak in the community, and it can not only stop a pandemic, but it can also prevent it from happening in other countries. The fictional virus that was known as the sex virus, it's fictional, and there is no virus that causes a person to have, multiple orgasms, although some viruses can cause frequent urination, I'm not sure. Anyway, don't tell Dr. Anthony Fauci and Bill Gates about this sex virus, fictional virus. So, if things are done, and if people are prepared, then pandemics can be prevented and epidemics can be controlled. That is all. As always, thanks for watching.